as times got tough and money got tight, you kind of just want to stop the bleeding, right? You're kind of just like, oh man, like, let me just take on some money. Like, let me just take on a partner. Let me just, somebody could help. And always at the end of it, man, me, my brother, my cousin, we would just sit down and they would be like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, you know what? As much as I want to help the situation, stop the bleeding, being an ex-athlete, collegiate athlete, pro athlete, I understand it takes a little bit of pain to get to some success, right? I understand that. I understand adversity. Find comfort in adversity. Find comfort in being uncomfortable.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to an episode of The Dime. Brian Fields, and with me as always is Kellen Finney. And this week we got a very special guest, Chris Ball, CEO of Ball Family Farms. Chris, thanks for taking time. How you doing today?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me. How you boys doing today?
I'm excited to have you here. Kellen, how are you doing?
Doing really good. Grateful to talk to Chris today. How are you doing, Brian?
Yeah, I'm stoked. I think before we were having some fun with some of the football stuff, but I think today we're going to talk about the brand and some of the decisions we make that are difficult at the time, right? When people might push back on you, but ultimately end up working out. But in those moments, I think the decision to kind of go with those with your gut, I think it's the fun stuff that I really want to push on Chris to get a little more background on. So before we get into all the fun stuff, Chris, can you give a quick background on yourself and how you find your way to the cannabis space?
Yeah, man, a little background on Chris Ball. Inner city kid from Los Angeles, California. I always like to say that I was born in the trap, but raised in the suburbs. Grew up in a little town called West Covina, about an hour and a half east, Rolling Heights, West Covina, hour and a half east of LA. And, played sports my whole life, played 6 years of pro ball, went to play at Cal, go Bears. Kind of tapped on that a little bit earlier. I'm a big Ram fan, so go Rams. Gonna beat up San Francisco tomorrow. But found my way in cannabis, man, at the age of 16 is actually when I got my first ounce. And I had seen it before through my step pops. My dad was a weed smoker, had a nice, cool little round tray underneath the couch back in the 80s. And he used to pull that little tray out from underneath the couch, roll up his Reds, remove his seeds, and roll up zigzags. And so that was kind of like my introduction to it. My mom smoked cigarettes at the time. And so I always knew what my mom's cigarettes smelled like because I hated them. But then dad's cigarettes were a little bit smaller and they smelled better. So that was kind of like where I kind of started getting an idea. And then, fast forward to when I was 16, my cousin Earl, who actually works for me today, actually in this facility somewhere, gave me my first ounce of weed at 16 years old because he was the neighborhood weed guy. And, my entrepreneurship began right there at 16, breaking down my first ounce and selling my little dime bag. So that was kind of like my introduction. I mean, there's a long story that we'll get into of how I got here today. Here we are, Well, I think I just celebrated my 31st year officially in cannabis since I was 16. But yeah, that's a little bit of my background and the origin story of Chris Ball in cannabis.
Now, take us through Ball Family Farms. What's the idea behind the name? Obviously, it has the relation to like the family. I think that's always important. But there's a couple of different ways you can go there. Why was that important to do that then? And what was the original intention of the company? What did you aspire to be early on?
Yeah, so the original intention of the company was there wasn't really one, right? So I'm a tier 1 social equity applicant. I had no idea what social equity was, when I got my license. I had caught my indictment, back in 2010, which qualified me for the social equity program. And in 2018, I was illegally growing again 8 years after my indictment. And, I got off papers and all that. And I was illegally growing in Van Nuys, and I was just selling weed to property compliant shops. And my landlord at the time got wind of the social equity program, but I wasn't following anything with the city or anything like that. I was just in my little 5,000 square feet, growing my trees and selling them to my boys who own pre-ICOs. And so he had come in and gave me the information about the social equity program. And so I went down to City Hall and sat in a meeting, and kind of figured out, oh, this thing is legit. So, I was like, well, as an ex-athlete, you can't win unless you're in the game, and that was kind of like my attitude. So I said, fuck it, I'm going to go fill out this application. Probably won't get it, but, I can't win unless I'm in the game. So I filled it out and, lo and behold, a couple months later, I got this email congratulating me on getting a license. So at that time, I was kind of like, what the hell? Like, you just gave a convicted felon a license to legally grow weed. And so when I got that, because I'm from the street, I'm from the legacy market, I'm like, well, who can I trust, with this business? I didn't want to go out and hire outside people. So I said, well, let me just grab my family. Like none of my family really knew anything about the cannabis business except for, Chris has been arrested for that. And he's been selling weed his whole life, So I went and grabbed my brother, grabbed my little brother, grabbed, my little cousin, grabbed my sister. I just started grabbing people and kind of teaching them the space and saying, hey, I got this license. Here's maybe an opportunity for us to make some really good money, maybe change the trajectory of the family legacy. Would you guys help me? And, they all said, yeah. So that was kind of like the inception, right? Like there wasn't really an idea. Like I didn't go after the license and be like, okay, I'm gonna start a business and da-da-da. It kind of just fell in my lap. And then once it fell in my lap, the name Ball Family Farms came because I'm like, well, I'm gonna hire my family. Our last name is Ball. So why don't we just call it Ball Family Farms? And we'll just go from there. And the rest is history.
What was that onboarding process like when you're like just approaching your family, like, hey, I got a license. This is what I'd like to do. Like,
bro, great question. So my younger brother, Chuck, was actually the first one I enlisted because he graduated from Cal Poly Pomona and he was the straight A student of the family, right? He had worked in corporate America. He was actually managing like a call center where they call you and like get you to pay your student loans. So, he was that guy. And so when I first asked him, he told me, hell no, because fun fact, my little brother was actually there in 2010 when I was getting chased by the feds, right? So my little brother's first interaction with me and weed was us getting chased by the feds and then him watching his brother go to federal prison. So when I came back 8 years later and I'm like, bro, I got a legal license to grow weed. He's like, bro, get away from me. Like, I'm still traumatized from what you did to me back in 2010. I'm not messing with you. So then I went and told my mom, I said, Mom, look, I need you to help me with Chuck because, I got this license. It's legit. Like I showed her all the paperwork. I said, but he doesn't believe me. I said, so I need you to make him help me because I don't trust anybody else. So it was on Mother's Day. And we had taken my mom out to eat at Cheesecake Factory at the Grove. I'll never forget this. And we were sitting there and I kicked my mom underneath the table. And my mom was like, Chuck, your brother tells me you don't want to help him with his weed business. What's going on? And he goes into, Mom, Chris is lying. Like, there's no way he got a legal license. He's a felon. Like, they wouldn't give it to him. He knew nothing about social equity either. So she's kind of like twisted his arm and was like, listen, look at the paperwork, do your research. And if you still don't want to do it, that's fine, but give your brother a shot. At least figure out if he's telling the truth because he needs your help. And so he did, found out it was legit. And then, the rest is history on that. But that's how that conversation, that's how that went. Enlisting family.
It's nothing better than mom, right? Using the power and influence of mom.
She came off the top rope, hit him with that elbow in the head and said, go help your brother.
I think the important part there is like she recognized the dynamic and understanding like how he probably could be really instrumental in helping you in those elements. And I think that's the important part because early on, right, you're just trying to figure everything out, right? There's no playbook. You're just like, hey, I need help. I need people I can trust because like, sure, he's on board. But the next thing you guys do is you got to figure out like, are we growing?
We got to figure out licensing, bro. We got to figure out MEPs, permits, bro. It was gruesome. I'm gonna tell you for like the first 2 years, I didn't know shit. I went down to building and safety, stood there for 3 hours, not knowing which line to get in. Bro, it was a mess, bro. It was a mess. And after, a certain amount of time, because I had started enlisting help from like my old contractors that were building the illegal stuff. And one of my contractors put me in touch with a woman named Ebony Anderson. She's still my COO to this day. And he's like, listen, the things that you need someone that works for the city that can help you navigate this. So he put me in contact with her. And I offered her percentage in the company to help me because I didn't have the money to pay her because I needed all the money to build the grow. And it all worked out, man. She's actually sitting right over there at her desk right now as we're doing this podcast. Though we're all still here and we're all getting it done. She's actually the one that got us across the finish line with all the licensing, the MEPs, the permits, like all that stuff that I didn't know. She was actually the one that did it.
I think that's so important. So let's fast forward a little bit, right? So like you get the plants in the ground, they're starting to grow. Then you got to come up with like the brand and kind of marketing all that out, because it's one thing to grow the products. And another thing is like, if nobody buys them, we're not really a business. So there has to be a moment there where you're like, okay, we got to figure out like, what are we branding out? How do we want to approach that? Take us through that conversation and kind of the creative names you guys kicked around.
Yeah, man. So when I first came up with the name, at first it was going to be Ball Marijuana Family. And then I quickly realized that the abbreviation was BMF, right? And I was like, oh, I don't want no smoke with none of that, right? So then we came up with the BFF. And it was kind of like a double meaning, right? Ball Family Farms and oh, weed's my BFF, So where I was like, okay, that's catchy. Then we went into the logo, right? And so I didn't really know anything about making logos at the time. My creative team, I had my ex-girlfriend and her partner, my ex-girlfriend, Francesca Siegel, and her partner, Jasmine, had a company called JNF. And so since she was my ex, I didn't really have to pay for all of this marketing advice, right? So they're the ones that kind of came up with the logo. They hired the graphic designer. They shot a bunch of, different logos at me and was like, which one do you like? Until we finally came up with this one. But there was one before this where we had like it's really old, bro, but it has like a weed leaf in it, and it says Ball Family Farms, and it kind of looks like a baseball. Like I'm gonna shoot it to you guys so you have it, so that when we're talking about this part, you guys can probably pop it up in the podcast. But so we had that, and then as we started to grow, and I kind of started to want to move the brand from being so urban looking and so Jungle Boys looking. Shout out to Jungle Boys, Roach, all you guys, those are my dogs, know this. But I just kind of wanted to clean it up and like elevate it a little bit. So I'm like, let's get rid of the weed leaf. I don't want that to be the theme. I don't want people to see the name and automatically think cannabis, right? Let's do something elegant. So when you see the Ball Family Farms, you kind of don't know what it is and you want to go look for it and look it up. So we got that out of the way. Then the names, right? Now, one thing that I knew at the time, because I come from the traditional market, and OG was a big thing from the 80s all the way up until early 2000s. Like OG was the number one strain in California and across the world, period, or across America. So when I started coming up, when I finally found my strain, people, of course, told me, yo, you can't come out with just one strain. And these are like distro companies that I'm looking at. These are people like actually in the facility, in the space having success. You can't just come out with one strain. Well, I knew better, right? I knew better because of my traditional experience. Well, if that's the case, why has OG been the number one strain for the past 30 years since I've ever been in cannabis, right? So I'm like, that's a lie. So when I found my strain, my GMO times OG, everybody was naming their weed after foods, candies, all this other kind of stuff, right? I'm an outlier. I'm a Capricorn. Everyone goes this way. I want to go that way. It probably could be because of my liberal school in Berkeley teaching me to question everything for 4 years, right? So I was like, you know what? I don't want to name my strains food or candy or anything like that. I want to do something that goes against the grain that gets people's attention. Well, I'm a movie buff, right? I watch movies all day, every day. I've seen just about every damn movie, right? And I memorized movie lines, and it's just something that me and my crew did in high school. And my favorite movie just so happened to be The Karate Kid. That was my favorite movie growing up as a kid. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to name my first strain Daniel LaRusso, right? At first, I was going to name him Danielson, right? And my boy Ron, he's got a brand called Kingston Royal out of the Bay. He and I are really close. He was like, Daniel LaRusso is good. I mean, Danielson is good, but it's too obvious, right? He's like, let's make him think a little bit. Let's name it Daniel LaRusso, because everybody won't get that right away. Only the people that know will know, and everyone else will have to go look it up, and then they'll figure out, oh, it's Danielson, the Karate Kid. Oh, that's cool, right? So, and everyone again told me, you're marketing to your own demographic. You're only marketing to yourself. All these kids, all these Gen V, Gen Z, Gen whatever the hell, millennials, they won't get it. They never saw that movie. And I was like, well, I don't give a shit, right? I'm like, they're either gonna, if they don't know it, they're gonna go look it up and find out. If when they do figure it out, it's gonna be an aha moment for them, you know? And so we went with it. Everyone told me no, but I was like, I don't give a shit. It's my brand. I can do what I want to do. And it just so happened, man, the fucking stars aligned. Like that Cobra Kai show came out on YouTube. And all these young kids started learning who Daniel LaRusso was. And so that was, to me, man, that was like a decision that I was just going to make bullheadedly. Like, I don't care. Like, as long as the weed is good, it don't matter what it's called. They're going to come looking for it as long as the weed is good. And then it just, I don't know, God was like, no, I'm going to bless you with this one, son. Here you go. Boom. Cobra Kai comes out. LaRusso comes out. Now everybody's posting, smoking, watching Cobra Kai, watching Karate Kid. I'm like, oh, we out of here. We to the moon.
I love it because I think in that process, like there has to be like a tiny bit of doubt, right? If everyone around you that loves you is pressing you, hey, Chris, like this might not be the best idea. Like even the most confident people probably see a little bit of doubt. You're like, I don't know. And then the moment I think that's the important part, right? Like that's where it's like you stuck to your guns, you pushed it forward, and in those moments it worked out. And then take me through the moment where you realize it's hitting, right? Is it Cobra Kai being out? Is it the post on social media? What was the combination of events where you recognized you're like, not only did this absolutely smash, like the sales aligned and it's ripping now?
You know what it was, bro? First, the money started coming in, right? And I started watching the bank account like go up, right? And this is during COVID too. So everybody knows during COVID, like we were all self-proclaimed billionaires, right? We were just making money hand over fist. But what really put the nail in the coffin for me, when I knew we had arrived and I knew that this shit had worked, is I got a DM from Burner, right? The fucking GOAT. And I'm like, I didn't even see it at first. My marketing team saw it and they screenshotted it and sent it to my phone. And he DM'd me and said, I see you. Keep doing what you're doing. And I was like, that's it. We made it. I made it. This shit is working. We going to the stars like it's on. So that was a defining moment for me, man. Shout out to Big Burner, man. Like obviously we met and spoken, since then, but that was the moment where I knew that brought it all home. That brought it all home. I still have the screenshot in my phone. I've saved it. Like that was my big like middle finger. Like fuck everybody. Like I told you we could do this shit. One strain, one name. That's it.
I love it. So take us through kind of how we evolved from that. Did we add more strains? Did we go slowly through the process? And when did you know it was the right time to expand it out?
Yeah, so after that fear kind of went away on the Daniel LaRusso thing, I'm like, all right, well, let's try it again. So then I dropped Miyagi-Do, right? And as soon as I dropped Miyagi-Do, it went crazy. Then I dropped Bonsai, right? Bonsai Tree. It went crazy. So then I'm like, all right, this is going to be our thing, right? This is going to be our thing. And then slowly after that, I heard of Billy Kimber. I started hearing names of movie characters, of these characters, right? So I was like, all right, that's flattering. Like, often imitated, but never duplicated. It's cool. I'm honored. And then we just kind of started at that point, I had enough confidence and I had enough steam that I was like, all right, you can kind of just do what you want. So now I'm like, I'm going to just start naming all of my strains after movies or shows or characters that inspired me as a kid and inspired my hustle, right? And so we just kind of adopted the whole thing. So now I have a plethora of strains from, Ferris Bueller to, Debo to freaking Laura Charles to the Shogun, These are all the things I watched as a kid growing up. And these characters, these were my favorite movies, And then it just started taking off, bro. Like I started making t-shirts, I made I made character t-shirts. We started selling them, I started my little merch line and it just started, everyone would see me, people would see me out, bro. And they'd be like, man, I remember that movie, The Last Dragon, or bro, I remember this movie, like that's so dope. And I was like, oh man, this feels good. It felt really good to be afraid of something and then get your community and you're following to validate what you thought that would work. And it came, strictly out of my brain, out of my head, so that felt really, really good, man. That felt really good.
Talk us through the process of like pairing the character or the name with the strain. Is it like you gotta like smoke the strain, watch a couple movies, and you're like, this is what it is right here?
Yeah, no. So like now at first it started to become that, right? We're like, what does this make you feel, right? But now we've kind of pivoted from that, and it's like, okay, now I have strains. I have like 60 strains. The artwork is done. Everything is done at this point. And now the weed is trying to catch up to the strains that we already had, right? Because now back then, I'm buying cuts. I'm doing all the things back in 2018 because I wasn't so deep into my cultivation expertise, right? I wasn't popping seeds back then. I got the LaRusso cut from a friend, but now we're actually popping seeds. We're actually pheno hunting. We're actually, crossing shit to birth other things. So now we kind of like, now the whole team is involved, and we're like, all right, what are some dope characters? Like I said, I got about 60 of them, probably 30 of them haven't even been used yet. And so when we find something good that we like, we look at the list and we go, okay, which one we want to see. And sometimes it may have something to do with the smoke, and sometimes it may not. It may just have something to do with, let's introduce this character to the following, right? Let's see if they know who this character is. Let's see what we get from that.
The challenge, though, with the cultivation is that, especially early on, is that you've limited resources, right? Like you can't do everything all at once. And one of the biggest challenges is the financing aspect. Sure, you'd love to probably experiment a little more, but it's expensive. It takes a lot of time. And in those early days, you got to figure out, we got to get this up and running. We got to figure out the town, the licensing. We got to get the product out. We got to hire people. And then the expansion. So are there like decisions, like thinking back on it now, where you were like, that was a really critical moment going left or right? And I'm super glad. Daniel LaRusso obviously is one, but was there another one early on where you were like, hey, I'm really glad we went right, even though we were really close to going left?
Yeah. The main one, man, was when I got into my 20,000 square foot facility, the one I'm sitting in right now, which was my first legal licensed facility. We built out 9 rooms upstairs. We had a shell. I had the insulated panels for 9 rooms, and I was running low on money. I didn't get any outside money. Everything that Ball Family Farms has came out of my shoebox money from the legacy market, right? I bootstrapped it all by myself, because who was going to lend an ex-felon with this new social equity license, right? Some money, right? It wasn't
real.
Right. They didn't believe it was real. I didn't have no P&Ls. I didn't have no bank statements. Like, where's your collateral, bro? I had none of that. So one of the key decisions, though, is that we were going to halfway build like 3 rooms, right? And we were just going to run the rooms and get the best product we could out of them, instead of doing 1 room fully built out. And so when we're running the numbers like, okay, it's 30, 60, 90 lights. Even if we get 1.5 a light, that's this much. I could probably sell that weed for this much, and we can keep going. And then it was like, but if you just do 130 light room and you make that 130 light room perfect, and you get out perfect flower, then we can resell that for a higher ticket, right? God willing. And then we can take that extra bread and then move into room 2 and just do 1 room at a time. Now, what is that going to do? Well, your rent is still going to be your rent. No matter if you got 1 room or you got 9 rooms, that don't matter, right? So in that moment, I had to make a decision. Okay, do I want to pay, the $30,000 in rent and then only have 1 room? And then after I pull some money, after I pay the rent, pay the power, wasn't paying myself or my brother or my cousin. We literally did it with our bare hands. We built all this stuff with our bare hands, right? After I pay everybody, maybe I only have 10 grand, 20 grand to put away, instead of 40, 50 grand. So now it's going to take me a couple times to harvest that room and sell all that product before I can build the next room. Well, I made a decision to do 1 at a time. And I made that decision because, again, my legacy experience, right? I remember being in the legacy market, being in the trap, going to meetings, bringing my weed and losing to a guy with better quality weed sitting next to me. right? And I didn't want to be in that position again. That as a competitor and as a football player, I hated to lose. Whether it was a football game or a sale, I hated to lose. So I say, you know what? Let's just take all the money we got. Let's just build out this one room perfect. Leave these other rooms empty. Pay the full rent. It doesn't matter. We'll get it back in the end. It's the best decision. And that's what we did. And as we did it, sure enough, room after room came online.
That's so hard to like have the foresight for that. I'm thinking through that as you're saying that, and I'm thinking to myself, there's just no way that I would be able to have that. But you're right, like doing it meticulously one step at a time is the right way to build it from a foundational standpoint. Plus, because once that fire becomes spread like it did, it becomes one where everything else just becomes easier and everyone's attracted to it because you built that foundation of confidence behind the brand and the quality and the consistency that people look for to when they look for a trusted product.
Right. It was tough, man. I was broke. You know, your boy spent his bag and I was broke. But I just kept thinking to myself, like, don't worry, man, this shit is only temporary. This being broke is temporary. Just stay true to the plan, stay true to the process, stay true to the product, and it'll take care of itself. And it did, man. It really actually did. I'm a living testament that it actually did.
Did you have any considerations for bringing on outside people to say, hey, Chris, like, I know you got 8 other rooms here. Be happy to lend you some money. You got a really great brand. Here's some money. We can figure it out. Was there any consideration to that at that moment you can speak to?
It was, man, because as times got tough and money got tight, you know, you kind of just want to stop the bleeding, right? You're kind of just like, oh, man, like, let me just take on some money. Like, let me just take on a partner. Let me just, you know, somebody could help. And always at the end of it, man, me, my brother, my cousin, we would just sit down and they would be like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, you know what? As much as I want to help the situation, stop the bleeding, being an ex-athlete, collegiate athlete, pro athlete, I understand it takes a little bit of pain to get to some success, right? I understand that. I understand adversity. Find comfort in adversity. Find comfort in being uncomfortable. And so as many times as people would come, I just didn't trust anyone. I really didn't. And I heard horror stories. I would hear about them all the time. Oh, I got this partner. I can't do this. I got to do that. I can't do this. And I just say, you know what, guys? We're just going to bet on ourselves, man. If we can't do it, then we don't belong here. You know, if we can't get this done on our own, we don't belong here. And so that was just a gut. That was just a gut and like tenacity, you know, and that came from years and years of sports, having a sports background, you know, having to play when you're tired, having your coach, you know, telling you you're a piece of shit because you missed a play, instead having to let that go and continue to keep pushing. So I think the combination of both, just my legacy experience, you know, with not trusting people and watching my back, and then the work ethic that was instilled in me, you know, as a young boy from having to play sports at a high level, you know, those two things is what kept me like, nah, we just gonna push through this. We got it.
I think that's so powerful. So talk to us about how you got connected with Hood Baby and how that relationship kind of formed.
Yeah, man. So Hood Baby honestly came by way of my new cultivation manager. So I think back in, what are we in, 25? This had to be in like into 23, I believe. I had fired everybody. It was time for a refresh. Like, you know, from 2018 all the way up until like 23, 24, bro. When COVID came and we boomed, and then the market came out of COVID and the market crashed and compressed, I learned that the team that I had wasn't the right team, right? That COVID and those false numbers and everyone having the smoke gave all of us a false sense of, you guys know what you're doing, right? And I realized very quickly that we did it, that we weren't good operators, that we didn't manage money very well, all the things that you learn, you know, when you crash. So I had just like fired everyone. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go back in myself. You know, me and my cousin, my brother, I'm going to go back in myself. I'm going to stop being a weed celebrity. Chris Ball is going to go on hiatus for a second. You got to go back in and fix your company, or you're going to lose it. And I was over at Elevated Equipment Supply, and I was going there myself to go get something for the facility. And my cultivation manager now, Oscar Figueroa, he just so happened to be in the shop that day. He was hanging out, rolling up a joint with one of the manager there. And I guess he recognized me. and told the manager, hey man, that's Chris Ball. That's, that's the owner of Ball Family Farms, man. I would love to work with him. He was just finished working at another company. And so the manager was like, oh, that's my boy. Like, I'll call him. I had already left at the time. So he called me, told me that Oscar was looking for a job. At the time, I don't got no cultivation manager. A CEO is back in the grow, getting his hands dirty. So I, interviewed Oscar. It was between him and another guy. I wind up going with him. And then maybe 6 months into Oscar's career with me, he brought up Zach. He brought up Hood Baby. And they used to work together at the other grow that Oscar was working at before that company ended and went out of business. And so he had just kind of told me like, hey man, like there's this kid that used to work with me that's really, really good. And we were looking for a propagation manager at the time. And he's like, I really think, he'd be a good fit. I think you like him. So I said, well, bring him over. So he brought him over. I interviewed him. And just so happens, as he's sitting there talking to me, he's like, man, I've been a fan of yours for a very long time. And I DM'd you like 2 years ago telling you I wanted to work with you. And I'm like, yeah, right, bro. You trying to butter me up because you want the job. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, yeah, right, bro. And he's like, go in your DMs, right? So I'm right there in the interview. Go on my Instagram, I go in the DM, he types in his name and boom, there's the message. Hey, Chris, man, my name is Zach. Like, I really am inspired by you. I would love to work with you, da-da-da. So needless to say, he got the fucking job, right? Because I was like, oh, wow, you've been a fan of mine for this long. That's cool. So we hired him. And honestly, man, it was one of the best decisions that I had made. He kind of told me he was working at a traditional spot. He's working at a 100 lighter all by himself. His weed wasn't coming out great. He had been hunting all these genetics, but he couldn't. The facility needed money and needed things, and he couldn't get the genetics to do what he wanted them, what he knew that they could do because he wasn't in the proper environment. So he's like, man, if you hire me, like I'll take care of the veg, da-da-da. He's like, but what I really want to do is I want to hunt genetics and I want to bring you your first trophy. And I'm like, and you gotta think, I'm looking at this little young kid, right? He from East Oakland, he hoodie, like all the things, right? And I'm just like, all right, bro, like you got me once with the Instagram DM, right? You ain't gonna get me again now with this bring you a trophy shit. It sounds great, but why don't we just start at entry level, take care of the moms, and we'll go from there. Man, a year later, the kid he wasn't lying about none of it. A year later, man, we entered that Connect Community, our first competition, that Connect Community competition was Sergio, the custodian out there in Vegas, and won first place. And I said, holy shit. And it was from a genetic that he brought in, that he hunted, that he found. It was Oakland Oranges times Zainbow. And I said, all right, kid, the fucking rest is history. I said, listen here, man. Once that happened, I started to realize there's some talented kids out there that just don't have a platform. They don't have a place to shine. Right. And you hear about it a lot. You hear about guys, there's been plenty of breeders, cultivators that, say brands took their genetics, stole their cuts, like just all the things. And once that happened with me and him, I said, you know what, man, like I want to do something different. I want to start a program and I want to put you out front. And I want to tell everybody that it was your genetic, that you hunted it. And I want to start your own brand. And I want you to make a name for yourself and all the people that you've looked up to, you idolize, myself, other, brands, people. I want them to respect you. I want them to see what you're capable of. And that's what's been happening, man. We did the rare breeds. We've done a couple drops for him. I helped him with his logo. We cleaned it up. I've been teaching him how to run a business. He's been promoted, in the company as well. He's managing now. So it's been a really, really good ride. And we both have gotten something out of it, right? I've gotten trophies. We got all these new great genetics. We got every brand, every big brand you think of calling us to do collabs, to pheno hunt, to breed, to do breeding projects. And he got what he wanted out of it, which was simply recognition. The kid don't ask for money. He's not like that. He loves it so much that he just wanted to be respected. He just wanted the industry and the powers that be to know, hey man, I belong here. My palate is great. I got a good eye for genetics. I can hunt fire shit. So it's been really great, man. It's been one of the most fulfilling things that I've experienced besides my brand taking off. That's been a close second to see him flourish and know that I was able to give him that opportunity and watch him fly. That's been dope.
So Before, though, you entered into the trophy, there had to have been a few moments along the way where you're like, I don't know if we're ready. I don't know if this is the right time. Because, right, there had to be. So where was that conversation where he kind of convinced you, hey, Chris, like, this is no bullshit?
You know what, bro? He didn't even, they didn't, once he got him, my director of cultivation, Drew, Oscar, and him, they kind of made this decision without me, right? Because I was kind of like, nah, I don't want to get embarrassed if we lose. Like, I'm like, let's not do that, right? And they were so adamant about it. They were like, no, bro, like we've smoked this. We know this is going to place, right? So I said, well, you know what? If you guys want to enter it, enter it. It was so bad that during the competition, I wasn't even there. We were in Vegas at MJ BizCon, and I was somewhere else during the competition. Like, I wasn't even thinking about it. I had forgot about it. And he called me and was like, I told you. And I'm like, you told me what? What are you talking about? He's screaming on the phone, we won. We won first place. I'm like, wait, what? For real? He's like, bro, you need to come over here. Like, people are asking about you. So we hopped in a cab and went over to where the competition was. And as soon as we got there, he had the belt, the trophy. Sergio and the guys was like, oh, Chris finally came. We took pictures, man. It was a really fucking fun. It was a fun thing. So at that point, I just stopped questioning him. Like, even with some of the stuff we have now, like, me and him will go into the rooms and we normally will pick two phenos. There's one for him, for his brand, and there's one for my brand. My stuff is more the stuff that's like obvious, right? The stuff that has like the craziest nose. His stuff, you don't know. Like, I'll look past his stuff and he'll be like, no, this is the one. This is the one for my community. And every time he's right. Like, every time we send it out to R&D, we'll send it to the BEZs, we'll send it to the TEDs, we'll send it to, we'll send it to everyone. They always come back. My stuff is basic. They'll be like, yeah, Chris, this is it. But this one, this is different. What is this? And he always look at me and be like, bro, I told you, man, like, don't mess with me. So I stop fucking with him. I don't even fuck with him no more. When I ask him, is this it? And he'll be like, yeah, that's it. Or he'll be like, no, that ain't it. And I'm like, all right, that ain't it.
That's wild. That story reminds me of like a draft kind of story, right? Where like a kid walks up to an owner and it's like, I'm gonna bring you a trophy. You know what I mean?
Yep. That's exactly what it felt like.
That's so cool.
And then you like laughing at him until he actually bring that damn trophy, and you like, all right, well, I gotta give you a respect now. So it's been fun, man. It's been a good ride with him for sure.
And a star.
He is. He definitely is.
So how do you balance then the resources from understanding, right, the grow techniques and all these new areas that are coming out and trying to experiment and push the line, but also have the brand? Because again, like, those are all difficult decisions. You've got a limited cultivation space. You want to grow the things for your brand, for his brand, but you also want to experiment. So take us through some of the new things that you're doing, some of the transitions that you're going through.
Yeah, man. So I got to give that credit to my cultivation manager, Oscar. He's from the military and he's very organized, and his brain works in a way that mine doesn't, So when him and Drew get together, Drew is really about the numbers and very meticulous with certain things, but them two, sit in the same office pretty much and they bounce it off each other. So for instance, like at one point we had an R&D room, right? We had an R&D room and that R&D room had 20 lights in it. And so I had 8 flower rooms that were just strictly for flower. And then I had this 8 flower rooms of 30 lights. And then I had this 120 light room that we would use for R&D. And so as we're trying to experiment with different genetics and all this stuff, my idea was, why don't we put all the new genetics, in the R&D room, 20 lights. And so Oscar sat on it one day and he was like, you know what? I don't think that's like a good idea. That means we're only going to get, new phenos every 63 days, really every, 80 days, because after dry, trim, and cure. And he's like, why don't we take, since there's only 20 lights in that room, but we have 8 other lights, he's like, why don't we just take 2 lights from each room and put, 16 plants of different phenos in each room, since we're harvesting every week. That way, instead of, now we got 16 lights or 18 lights, whatever the number is, 16 lights, right? And now we have 16 lights versus 20, but we're getting something every single week. It's kind of the same. You're only missing 4 lights if you were to do it all in that R&D room. but now we're getting some different every single week. We're not blowing an entire room just on R&D, right? Because when you're doing phenols, you're not going to really get anything for that. You can't go sell that. It's really for R&D purposes only, so you can find the winners and losers. And so as we did that, I'm like, damn, like that was really, really smart. That's a way my brain doesn't work that way, but his did. As far as the tech and all that kind of stuff, I'm a firm believer in we're always learning, right? The moment I get complacent and start to think that we know everything, even though we got a Olympics trophy now, we got, the Connect Battle trophy now, like we're winning shit. I still don't believe that we know everything, right? And especially from us transitioning from a complete living soil grow to now a cocoa living soil and rock will grow, right? So there's been so much tech, right? And a lot of growers, I think the problem with a lot of growers, especially growers my age, is that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. They're stuck in their ways, right? They made so much money doing things their way by a feeling, right? Back in the day in 2018, there was no Arroyo. There was no Agrotech. There was no Trollmaster, right? There wasn't any of these things. So you just had to go into the room, pick up the fucking plant and feel. How hot is it in here? What's the humidity in here? All these different things. And so now that all this innovation has come into the space, crop steering, sensors, climate stations, all the things, I think what set us apart is that we've never gotten too arrogant to think that we can't learn something, and we're always trying new tech. Every time I go to MJ BizCon and we see something new, we want to try it. Now, we waste money trying this shit because a lot of it doesn't fucking work, right? It's just people trying to come up, non-growers coming up with tech shit that they think is going to work because they got a degree in fucking mechanics or whatever the fuck, but the shit don't be working. But there is, I would say 2 out of 10 will find something that actually works, right? I know and shout out to Arroyo, man. We love that. We love the team over there, but they hooked us up with this AI, right? And we thought, this AI is going to be, the next thing. They put people on the phone with us. Oh, our yields went up 40%. The AI feeds, you can set the parameters and it'll feed, da-da-da. So we said, all right, we'll set the AI up on one table and then we're going to go back and forth. We're going to feed the other 2 tables, but we'll set the AI up on this table. And man, we've been doing that shit, huh? Oh, front, back seat, there's Drew telling me, no, it's not one table. It's front half of the table, back half of the table. But tomato, right? Right? But, I love it. That's what I pay them for. But
somebody's rearranging their table as we speak.
Yes, exactly. But we found, man, that, we looking at the quality of the product, and the product that we physically water ourselves and don't let the AI do comes out better. So I think there's something to be said, man, that even with the tech and even with all the innovation, and it's great. We use Arroyo, we use Trollmaster, we crop steer, we're using sensors, we're doing all this stuff, but nothing will ever take the place of a human being that understands those plants and understands that room. We still walk down every aisle. I still walk this facility every single day when I'm here, unless I'm out getting us another deal in Canada or in Arizona. I'm at this facility every day. The guys, we're walking it, we're touching plants, we're looking at it, we're making sure that equipment is working. And I think that's a really important thing. I don't think the robots are ever going to be able to do it as well as a human can. I think they will help a tremendous amount, because without the innovation and without the robots, I wouldn't be able to be in Canada or be in Arizona, right? Because I can see the facility from my computer. I can see the parameters. I can see my room temps. I can see the humidity. I can see the VPD. I can see the moisture levels in the cocoa off the computer. But you still got to have a human in there to make sure there ain't a sensor in every plant. And did that dripper fall out, right? Is that dripper hanging off the side of that plant, and that one of them plants with no sensor is not getting enough water? So those things are important. So love the AI, love where it's taken the industry. I think really great growers are going to be able to duplicate themselves all over the world. Get you 1 or 2 competent people that understand plants and just know how to read numbers. But yeah, I think there is still something to be said with, having a human in that room, taking care of those plants, having a brand, having somebody who, can connect to the people, to cannabis culture. All those things matter when having a successful brand.
So a bunch of things I want to highlight there is like, one, the openness to try new products, right? Because I think that's really, really important, because I don't think a lot of people realize how rare that is in this space. I think people find a comfort lane and they're like, we do this really good, we're going to stick this way. But you're right. The technology is continuing to iterate. And what you don't want to do, which is what you're doing really good at, is you're experimenting enough where when that 1 out of 10 event happens, you're not having a lack of change. Your openness to change is very high, and you're looking to find that right product, and it has to meet that threshold, and you do that controlled experiment, which is really, really important, because again, like, there are so many people in this space that are like, hey, we've done this the right way for 10, 15 years, and this is the way it always has. And that is just not how the world is, right? It is constantly iterating. This space is so hard. You need to be openness to change. And I give you kudos to that, because it is very rare in this space to hear that.
For sure. For sure. And it ain't always easy.
No.
Drew's asshole gets tight every time we want to make a change.
It's expensive. Like, it's difficult. It's hard.
Man, he be like, dude, come on, man. Like, we just figured this out. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but we could just do it in one section. Like, don't worry. It's going to be fine. Like, what if we find a gym? What if we find a diamond? And he's like, all right, And sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes it does, So I think us all being me, I'm the type of person, I'm 0 to 100. So I used to change the whole damn room, right? And Oscar and Drew have kind of reeled me back in and said, all right, let us set this up so we can get the experiment without hurting the company. Instead of doing 30 lights, let's just do 10, right? Just in case it flops. And if it flops, we can still make up for it with the other 20. So that's been a good compromise, because I like results fast. I want to know fast. I don't want to wait more than 63 days for the result. I want to know one run, because we only get 5.5 a year, right? And if we want to change 5 different things, right, I got to wait. That's going to be a whole year.
Wait till
if I'm changing 5 things 5.5 times. So I'm like, all right, let's just change a little bit in all 8 rooms, do this over here, and then let's figure it out. So that's important.
Yeah, I think we're all 3 of us here are married on that concept, for better or for worse.
For sure.
So talk to us about the Rare Breed program. I know we kind of lightly touched on it, but I would love for you to set it up for our listeners to understand a little more.
Yeah, for sure, man. So the Rare Breed program is just a platform where young legacy, growers, breeders can come and get with a legal licensed company, and come in here, be able to show your skills, show why you're special. And then if you really are special and you do got a skill, well, we can put you on a platform so that you can go create your own company, start your own brand, do all the things that I've been able to do on my own, but we're just going to give you a little help. We're going to give you the help that I didn't get. Going through the program by myself, I'm still learning. I'm 7 years in, and I'm still learning and still getting better. But some of the trials and tribulations that I had to face, I wish there was somebody like me that said, all right, I'm going to show you how to do this right the first time. So you don't have to do it 5 times and fail 5 times to figure out which one is correct. So it's just my way of kind of giving them a cheat code, but if you don't have the skill, if you don't have the drive, if you don't have the palate, the knowledge, the want, then I'm not going to give you my platform. This is not Rare Breeds is not a program where you're just going to kind of fly by night, come in, think you're going to get your own brand and then branch off and go away. Nah, man, Zach came in here and he started basically at entry level. Clean up the bedroom, clean up the mom room. It took a while, before we got that trophy. He kept bringing stuff. He kept working. He kept showing up early, leaving late, making sure everything was done. I had to drive out, some street mentality out of him and help him understand, listen, you're not in the legacy market no more. You're in a legal framework. And in a legal framework, this is how sales works. This is how business works. This is how HR works. You can't come in here looking like that or talk like that. You got other employees around you that you got to think about, So the project is really to bring, just raw talent out of the traditional market and then mold them into business owners. But you got to really be about this, because if you're not, you're going to get exposed, and I told him, you're on 60-day probation. You're late. You don't show up. I don't care what happens. I don't care who's sick. Unless somebody dies, okay, that's one thing, give me, okay, man, you ain't coming, but you need to prioritize this because that's what it takes to make it in this industry. If you ain't strong, this industry ain't for the weak. You will not make it. There are a lot of failures. There's the industry itself is a moving target. There's taxes. There's shit that we don't understand. There's banking. Why do I got to get taxed this much? Why is my bank fees this much? Why did I fail testing for this little piece of fucking microbial or what? Why did you grab it? It's so much, right? The deck is stacked against us. So if you come in and you display that hunger and you display that talent, and we can see it as a team, then we're going to put you on a platform and we're going to introduce you to the culture. And then after that, it's up to you. I'm going to give you everything you need. I'm going to take you down to the water, but I ain't going to be able to make you drink. You're going to have to do that yourself. And so he's been a great example of someone that's done that. So he's kind of made me think there are more like him. Now, I'm sure we'll run into some duds, but I'm willing to run into the duds if I can find another him, and give them a platform.
It's so powerful, right? Because you're helping people who just need an opportunity to be in position to succeed, and you're giving them that chance there. But the biggest thing you're giving them is that time, right? The time and the knowledge that you learned the hard way, that they're navigating the chance to kind of accelerate through and expedite through the process.
Yeah, man. And cannabis is not like corporate America. Me and Zach have had a lot of late night conversations, tears, smiles. I've been with him through the birth of his son, trying to navigate that as a new dad and still, commute 45 minutes to the shop and hunt. I mean, it's a lot, man. So I've learned as a CEO that bringing somebody into the Rare Breeds program, it ain't just about work. I'm going to get attached to this human, on a life level. Zach is now considered like a little brother to me. I know all about his life. I've been to his son's birthday with my wife, so there's so much more to it, to that project than just a 9 to 5. You come in and just clocking in and bringing genetic. That's not what it's about, because that's not what cannabis is about. Our culture is not like that. It's not corporate. We all know each other. If you're doing it well, it's this small. I can reach out and touch anyone, you talking bad, you talking shit online, whatever it is that you may be doing, we're all going to know about it. So it's more of, inspiring him to not only be a force to be reckoned with in the community as far as his talent, but also a good ally and a good human in the space, So all the things, man, all those things.
Last question, hard pivot. What question do you wish more people asked you?
Oh, that's a good one. What question do I wish more people would ask me? How often as a CEO do you get paid? From the company.
How often?
How often do you get paid? Or maybe a better question is like, as the owner, are you really the richest person in the business, in the company? Something like that. Because I think people see me and, they see the company and they just think like, oh man, like Chris Ball, he rich. Like he the CEO of Ball Family, like they popping, And sometimes it has them approach you or perceive you a certain way. Like you just always got it. Like you don't have no worries. Like you're set, bro. You're the CEO of Ball Family Farms. Like, what are you talking about? Like you guys are crushing it. And sometimes I wish they would just ask me like, how is it really being a CEO? Are you really that rich, or is it that easy? Do you not have any worries because you're the boss? So then it will give me an opportunity to vent and be like, today is a fucked up day, man. Like I'm really like today I need a shoulder to cry on today, So probably something like that, man. I don't have many complaints. Like I feel very blessed, feel very fortunate, to have the brand that I have, the company I have, the team that I have. But it's been a lot of hard work. Like I feel like I've earned it. Like I really do feel like I earned it. It wasn't given to me. And sometimes, you just want someone to acknowledge the journey, and just not always think that it's glitz and glam, and that you just got it, and that you can just donate 100 sweatsuits to the dispensary for all the bud tenders because you rich, you got it, But that's it. No, that's it.
So, Chris, for our listeners,
I like that question, though, man.
it's
I'm
a
gonna think
hard
about
question.
that
Yeah.
It is. It really made me think.
There's
Damn,
no right answer either, right? Like it could be so many different things, but I appreciate the rawness there, right? Because I think sometimes like people don't realize how hard it is and how many different stresses there is and how there's just an endless list of things probably in your head or priorities that you're just trying to accomplish all at once. So for our listeners, they want to get in touch, they want to buy some merch, and they want to buy some product. Where can they find you?
www.ballfamilyfarms.com. Very simple. Our IG is on there. If you don't know, it's at Ball Family Farms. Verified. There are some fake ones out there, so look for the one with the blue check. You can follow me at ChrisBall45, and you can hit us again, www.ballfamilyfarms.com. Merch, retail locations that we're all in, comedy. We got a new page also at BFF World is our comedy page because we actors in here. So we going to start showcasing that.
I love it. We'll link it up in the show notes. Thanks for taking the time. This was a lot of fun.